You all dressed up?
As the notice of this meeting was provided to the Cranford Chronicle as advertised on January 16, 2015. Notification was sent to the Star Ledger and promptly posted on the Municipal Public Bulletin Board and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk, informing the public of the time and place according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Good evening, everyone. First, we'll start off this evening with a presentation to Mr. Tom Pettis. It would be my honor and privilege to present this proclamation.
Whereas Mr. Tom Pettis, a Garwood resident, has been inducted into New Jersey Theater Hall of Fame by NJATC, and whereas Mr. Pettis is legendary among the vocal musicians in Union County, and whereas the lifetime and theatrical musical achievement is diverse and encompassing one, and whereas Mr. Pettis, a retired music teacher, taught in Linden and Cranford, whereas also directed musicals, and Mr. Pettis has also involved in Cranford Repertory Theater, Cranford Dramatic Club, and directed by Celebrations Children's Choir, among many other things. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Garwood congratulate Mr. Pettis on his honor of being inducted to New Jersey Association of Community Theater Hall of Fame, and be it therefore resolved, the Mayor hereby authorizes to fix the signature on this proclamation, which shall be presented to Mr. Pettis September 22nd, 2015, Charles and Mark, Mayor of Garwood. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll carry on with our regular business. Mr. Garwood.
Good evening, Mayor. Just a couple.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Garwood.
That's right. An update on some of the things we're doing right now. We've completed the drainage on Hickory, not all construction, but the drainage. We've got another day probably on 3rd Avenue. We'll then go back, clean those up with the curb replacements, et cetera, and we should be moving over the beach by the end of the week. The sidewalk projects have been bid, or we're waiting to receive bids. Bids are going to be received on the 29th. We're also out for bid on the sewer work, on the sewer right out here on Center Street. That work should be bid on the 14th, received on the 14th of October. We also have to discuss and resolve what streets we want to put in for 2016. I think everyone's, I amended the last one at Lou's request. I added that we have at least Center Street. I noticed I did not remove 30 Avenue Maple to Walnut. That's already been approved, and it's in the 2015 project. So the one halfway down the page, 30 Avenue Maple to Walnut, you don't have to look at. That's already on schedule. So we have to, out of the other projects, unless there's something else you want to do, we have to decide on that. The application to do in mid-October.
As I mentioned before, the Streets and Roads Committee had a chance to review this.
Actually, we have not.
Okay.
And now with this new addition, I'm wondering if we should have it back in the committee. But
What is the
what's
time?
the timeline, Don?
We kind of gotta know.
All right, I mean,
Maybe application.
okay.
Council, you have a question?
Yeah, I just got a question, and forgive my being parochial here. When's Hazel Avenue gonna come up on there?
What is Hazel Avenue? I don't know, the list keeps on growing. Well, for example, a street that we've never had on there before, but I think really needs to be done is West Street, Spruce to Beach. If you remember last winter, that looked like a war zone. We had craters all over it, so I think we really ought to jump that ahead of everything else and do that road. We're gonna be back to Clint's gonna be out there all winter long, putting it back together again this year. Hopefully, we'll get it done next year.
For some reason, I just noticed that the cracks in the street and just plants growing up from them.
Yeah, well, that's what doesn't have much traffic, that's why.
That's,
But,
you're not pine.
One of the problems is that, you know, it's impossible, almost impossible, unless you spend a lot of money to keep up with your roads. Our roads are in good shape, but there's always a street that's, you know, in need. And these are all streets that are in need, and I'm sure there's 10 others. But, you know, I mean, I can look at it, we can start, you know, on the cycle of projects.
You know, actually, I was just curious kind of where it was in the queue, because I know that there are streets that are much worse off, but I was wondering, if we're not up there, then there's gotta be some streets that are some pretty
Yeah, well, it goes, it's like supply and demand, you know, you gotta take care of the
scarce resources.
the ones that are really bad first.
Who's on?
Mr. Coriello, I do have a question about Third Avenue. You have Walnut to Cedar here.
Yes.
And I noticed that with the senior housing project complete, they did pave a good portion of that road. Do you think that that makes it something that we should really consider to make sure that it's all uniform? Or is that something that we should maybe put off as opposed to some of these other roads on here? Because about a quarter of it is recently
Well-
paved due to that project.
Yeah, but I don't think you wanna blend that in, I think you're gonna mill and pave right over the top of that, otherwise it's gonna look like a patch job before you start. But I would say that we should keep that in the queuing. Right now, we're doing the drainage over there. One of the things they did, they patched the road, but there still was a need for drainage, so that's actually what we're working on right now. So, I wouldn't take that out. On the other hand, I wouldn't put that in next year. I think, like I said, I think at least West Street should be done, and then one of the other streets, Hickory, for example, the 300 block, we did the drainage in that 2 years ago. So next year will be, by the time we get to it, it'll be 4 years old, but we did that, you know, in anticipation of, it'll be next year, but something else jumped in front of it, so. If you, like my recommendations, I'd recommend Hickory and West. Hickory east to Lexington, because that's the oldest one with drainage, and the West Street project, that brings us up to $270,000 on those two
Right.
projects, so. I mean, again, if you're looking for my suggestion, I would do that on that basis.
Right, makes a lot of sense, because with the drainage being recent on that portion of Third Avenue, it really should settle a little bit before
Right,
paving. That's the best, most efficient way of handling that.
Mhm.
All right, well, I'm definitely in support of West Street. I remember what it looked like, and I totally agree with that analysis. And Hickory Avenue from east to Lexington makes sense, considering the drainage was done in 13. So I'm okay with that.
By doing west from Spruce to Beach, we've already done the block between Beach and Pine a couple of years ago. We did the drainage, so that will just about finish west, at least on the south side, south of Spruce Avenue.
Any comments, or do we have a consensus with Mr. Goriello's recommendation?
I think I'm okay with what Don's recommending.
All right, Don will take your
Okay, so-
voters.
Just so I have clarity, so it's the first one, Hickory,
Hickory east to Lexington,
okay, and then the next to last, West Street?
West
Those are the
Street
only
spelled
two on the
WES.
list, correct?
not the greatest types.
Folks, those are the only two on the list you selecting?
Yes, that's,
That's all the money that we're gonna get.
Yeah, well, you know, we're not gonna get 270, but we'll get 225 maybe, so
that's been tradition.
that's been traditional, that's correct.
Very good. Okay, anything
Hope
else,
the
Mr.
state stays
Goriello?
good to us.
Okay. Any other questions from council, Mr. Goriello? Hearing none, Mr. Dixon?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
As everybody knows, Councilwoman Fidisco will be giving my full report, so I just figured I'd take the time to start out by thanking both governing bodies of both municipalities for the opportunity. I'm humbled and honored to be working for two municipalities as your public works leader. I want to thank Miss Ariema and her staff. I want to thank Chief Underhill and his staff, and last but certainly not least, the guys at Public Works for just going the extra step to really make this a smooth transition. It's almost 2 months now. They've been working as hard as ever. I kidded Miss Ariema when I came back. I said, you know, it's like I stepped back in time, and I really you know, where they left is a hardworking group of dedicated individuals. They are still that same group that I had there. They're getting everything done that they have to, and, you know, I owe a big thanks to them because they've been very cooperative in this whole process. So, thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm always available for, you know, phone calls, questions, you know, emails, however you want to contact me. If anybody doesn't have my information, feel free to see me, and I can share that with you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Alrighty, Mr. Renard.
if you want, we
Mayor?
can,
Oh,
Do I have questions, sir?
yeah,
All
sure.
right.
And, just a couple things. Thank you, Mr. Dixon, for coming here tonight. Couple things. One is I figured maybe it would be a good opportunity to share with the rest of the council and the audience your involvement in the Public Works Association and that type of background, but also, you know, some basic things like they may notice that there's yellow striping being done in the street now, which is something different. Maybe you want to speak to that, and then I do have another one, but we'll start with those two.
Sure, as everybody may or may not know, I've got almost 18 years working for various municipalities. I started off in Princeton Township, where as a project manager, I managed large capital improvement projects for the township that were done in-house by the public works crews and also done by outside contractors, and I came to Garwood as a superintendent of public works at a young age, as the mayor reminds me all the time. I came aboard, worked here for a little bit, and moved on to another opportunity in Fanwood, and now I'm back. I am involved heavily with the American Public Works Association, the New Jersey chapter of the association, the nationwide Public Works Association. I'm the treasurer in the New Jersey chapter, so I have involvement in that. You know, after hours on our weekends, we get together and we do have meetings, and it's a good time to bring up any issues that the governing body might have related to public works or even the community. And I could bring it up to the association, and they can research different ways to address these problems. You brought up curbing, that's a good question, or a great. We used to paint curbs, and we've done this in all our municipalities for years. A lot of municipalities did it. Used to paint the curbing yellow to just parking issues in front of people's houses. We found over time that it's much neater and much nicer because you end up painting these curbs on a regular basis. And it involves cleaning them and prepping them. We found that it's easier to paint these lines on the road. It's cleaner, you don't see it on the curb, but you still see it when you approach it, so it keeps you from parking in an area. So that's something that we've been doing since I began in August. Most of the yellow is almost completed now, so we're working towards that. We also painted the underpass as well, but that we did the curb because to keep residents and pedestrians and motorists aware of those ends of those aisles, because obviously we're not there.
Right, makes sense. And then to follow up on something that came up as a discussion at our last council meeting about Belgian block curbing versus concrete curbing, and just what are your thoughts on that from, you know, your experience?
My experience from a maintenance point of view is Belgian block curbing is a lot easier to maintain. And Donald, I'll look for you for this answer, but with concrete curb, generally speaking, I believe you've got an 8-foot or 10-foot section you have to replace as whole. And when you replace concrete curbing through a curbing program, you generally got to cut the road surface. You got to cut the asphalt. You got to, you know, put your forms in and pour that concrete. So you always have an area between the existing road and the new curbing. It's a new piece of curbing. You can see it's patchwork. Belgian block curbing, sometimes if it's a couple blocks that get knocked out or damaged, you can generally mortar them back in place with concrete, and it's less invasive to repair. It's easier to repair. You know, for a crew to go out and just put a couple blocks back in is a lot easier than doing concrete curb, which basically is done by contractor and not.
Right. So operationally, Belgian block is easier to work with. But of course, it also comes down to, you know, cost and, in terms of looks. Because right now, for example, the borough has all concrete, no bells and block. That would be something that we'd wanna look into, so that it's probably not patchy throughout the town.
And I've worked in municipalities that has had both, and generally, both municipalities I was in went from concrete curb to putting in belt and block curb because of the maintenance factor.
Right.
And also for looks as well, but that's, you know, certainly something the governing body and I, this, you know, we can discuss the streets and roads.
Okay. Thanks. And, thanks again for coming tonight. I know, you're putting in a lot of time. We talk almost every day. You know, I appreciate the 6:30 in the morning calls, or at least my calling to you and your answering, or 9:30 at night, so it doesn't go unnoticed.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I have a question
Yes.
there. Mr. Dixon, thank you. Thank you for coming. I don't know if you read the papers, but fire in Fred Corbett was fairly unpopular in the community. And I'm still getting comments about it from constituents. I received a complaint before last meeting, I've asked Councilwoman Tedisco. We've had a terrible problem with recycling since we got rid of waste management. And what the resident did was pick up the phone and called the DPW, left a message, no one got back to him. So what's the mechanism now whereby someone in Garwood, you know, I mean, we used to say around my house, call Fred. Someone who's used to calling Fred, what's the mechanism now whereby they get a complaint into the DPW, voice of concern, and how is that handled?
I've implemented, now, mind you, of course, I'm not always in Garwood, I'm not always in Fanwood. I have an email available, a departmental email, as well as not a personal email, but my Garwood email. So there's two email mechanisms you can contact me with. You can leave a message on the Public Works phone. I have been checking that at my office in Fanwood if I'm not around. And I've also informed the guys that all messages must be saved on the phone so I can call each and every resident back. You know, and you know, anytime. I mean, people can contact me in Fanwood if they have to, it's not a problem, or they can call down there, or by email. Email would probably be the best way.
Okay, I mean, email, believe me, I mean, if I were to contact you, that's the way it would be. This gentleman who voiced the concern was an elderly resident, been here his family's been here a couple of generations.
Sure.
I would imagine a lot of the people who are just used to picking up the phone and calling Fred aren't gonna do that. So if I could just ask you, implore you that, especially during the sensitive time of the transition, please make sure to check those messages and you have someone get back promptly.
Absolutely, and I've also informed the foreman and the rest of the guys down there that if there is something right away, and to call me on my cell phone. They all have my cell phone, they can contact me immediately, and wherever I'm at, I'll call them. So,
It is important to note, though, that you're not the only one that answers the phone down there. And that was true prior, that if someone happens to be in the Public Works building, foreman or staff member, they answer the phone at times too.
Right. Yes. And they also check the messages for that very reason.
Right, okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Well, thank you for coming. And if any questions come up later on, we'll address them, and Sarah will be in contact with you. Okay, thank you very much for your work. Thank you. So, on now, members of council, Mr. Renato.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two resolutions that are on the consent agenda, which I'd like to explain to the mayor and council. Both of them in executive session, sometime before we get to the consent agenda. At whatever time that is up to you, Mayor, but sometime before we get to the consent agenda. They are resolution number 266, which pertains to the affordable housing litigation, and that would be a litigation matter. And the other one is resolution 268, and that is a contract negotiation, attorney-client matter. Neither resolutions, I would just want to indicate are problems, I just want to explain them, and for various reasons, they have to be explained in the executive session.
I think we should do them right after your presentation. And just go to
Okay, we'll start my presentation, Mayor, so
I mean, your report.
that's it.
That's it. Any questions of Mr. Renato? Ms. Ariema, please read executive session resolution 15-263.
Closed session resolution authorizing executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation between the Borough and case UNNL 2406-1, COA, and contract negotiations related to contract with purpose of body worn cameras in the police department and the matter of attorney-client privilege relating to the above in accordance with NJSA 10-4. Closed session meeting is open to the public, exclusion of public, subject to the matter where it is necessary for the mayor and council Borough to conduct an executive session closed to the public in order to discuss the above listed matters. Now therefore be resolved that the council of the Borough to give a room phone to executive session according to the provision available in the meeting facts for the purpose of discussing the subject stated above. Be it further resolved that the matters discussed in and the minutes of the closed session shall be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists.
May I have a motion to adopt resolution 15-263.1?
So moved.
Roll call, Ms. Ariema.
Councilman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Matthew?
Aye.
Councilman Petrucelli?
Aye.
Councilman Luisco?
Aye.
And Council President Winstead?
Aye.
We'll retire to the back room, please, sir.
Just for the public, this should be quick, Mayor, so unless there's a lot of questions, which I'm not anticipating, I would think 5 minutes, 8 minutes, something